Manchester City 2, Leeds United 1. And Janusz Michallik, after 83 minutes, Man City are 2-0 up. They get awarded a penalty. They're on cruise control, yet it becomes rather nervy after that. And I can't imagine Pep would have been too happy, despite going 4 points clear in the changing room at the end of the game.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been happy just because they didn't put the game away, right? He wasn't happy with Haaland giving away, and he was right. At first, you just assume that Gundogan's going to have a hat-trick and score a penalty, and then it's nice and easy. 7 changes in the game, not even breaking a sweat throughout the game because they weren't challenged basically at all by Leeds United. But ultimately, I think Pep will have a point to make. So listen, I'm the boss. I tell you guys who's going to take penalties. We all know who takes the penalties and why the drama. And the drama really wasn't there because that game should have been 5-6, maybe even 7.
Yeah.
Erling Haaland had 2 sitters and probably 2 other very good chances to put that away. Julian Alvarez early on as well. So one of those games where I think Pep is just going to talk about maybe the penalty situation and nothing more.
A lot of talk in the build-up to this game, Janusz. It was a game that City were expected to win. It was a routine fixture at home for them against a Leeds side that are in free fall. Sam Allardyce has come in to try and stop the rot. And a lot of talk pre-game was, is he going to rest Erling Haaland? Is he going to pick someone else? Because Real Madrid takes place on Tuesday. Haaland started. So the question is, why was Haaland still even on the field in the 83rd minute to say to Gundogan, you can have this penalty?
Yeah, I think he trusts him. He's strong. He's powerful. I think he's in form right now. He wants him to continue to be in form. I think, as you've seen, as I've mentioned, I think he probably want him to get that goal, to keep the momentum, the good momentum going into the Real Madrid game, because he's been on cloud 9, no questions about that, breaking all kinds of records. And I just think it was just one of those situations. To him, it was more important to maybe keep the other, or the rest of the spine somewhat rested, and that's of course Ruben Dias and Rodri as well. So I'm sure, just it happens all the time that you maybe you monitor the player throughout the game. Anyway, he felt that this game was going nice and easy, which it was. As I've said, no sweat broken for most of the game. So that's just my guess why that happened.
It's an unnecessary risk, Janusz, because if he gets hurt, the way that he plays football, he's a wonderful player. He's 100% to do everything. He was putting his head in where others were putting his boots in this game. The biggest game of their season now is against Real Madrid. This game was in the bag. Why didn't they pull him off, take him off, say, that's it, you're done. You're not getting your goal today, but we want to wrap you up. Because you can talk about Ruben Dias, you can talk about Kevin De Bruyne, you can talk about Rodri and the other key players. Their main key player is Erling Haaland, and that was unnecessary today.
That's true. I don't have any other explanation than I gave you. I mean, you may have to ask Pep, that. But as I've said, I think there's a risk in everything in life, in anything. And I just this season he's been relatively healthy. And as I've said, I just think that this game didn't give Pep Guardiola anything to worry about, other than the fact that it was a bad defensive error towards the end, where there was a little bit of drama. Akanji didn't head that ball properly, didn't win it properly, I should say. And just, I mean, I don't know if I saw much of a risk at that stage. But yeah, anything can happen.
Okay, let's bring in Rob Dawson from ESPN FC, who's at the Etihad and has been filing for ESPNFC.com. Tell me, Rob, am I unnecessarily stirring a hornet's nest when there's not even a story here? Or does part of you agree that Erling Haaland should have been rested as far as the 83rd minute is concerned, when the penalty awarded, and already been substituted ahead of the game on Tuesday in Madrid in the Bernabeu? What do you reckon?
I mean, I think that there are probably 2 sides to this. I can fully understand why some City fans may have turned up today and thought, A, Erling Haaland shouldn't have started the game because they've got Real Madrid on Tuesday, and B, should have possibly been taken off early in the second half. I think perhaps what Pep might say is that he rested players who were more in need of a rest, the likes of Ruben Dias and Rodri, and he didn't feel he could rest his entire starting 11 before Real Madrid. He needed to keep the core of his team on the field to win the game against Leeds, because obviously they're still in a title race. In terms of why didn't he come off early? Why was he still on the pitch when the penalty decision was made? Again, I think Pep Guardiola would possibly have said that at half-time to his players, the minute that third goal goes in, you're all coming off, and we're gonna make changes, and we're gonna rest you before Madrid. The fact that second goal didn't arrive, Pep gets slightly nervous at sort of 2-0 and wants to keep players on the field. I think that if that third goal had come early in the second half, that Erling Haaland would have come off very, very quickly. I think also with strikers, there's possibly an issue with rhythm. Do you want to keep the striker in a rhythm? He's been scoring goals. He's been playing really well. Did you want to leave him on and maybe help him get that goal? It's one of those things. If he takes him off and then Leeds score again at the end and it's 2-2, he gets lots of criticism. If he gets injured, he gets lots of criticism. I think the Pep Guardiola would probably say that he's come through the game fine. They've won the game. He's fit and ready to go for Madrid. Then he's made the right call.
I almost think that the biggest risk was not taking Kevin De Bruyne out. For one reason being that he's missed a game, last game due to slight knock, and as I said it before, I think he's the most important player for Manchester City, even more important than Erling Haaland in the bigger scheme of things. So maybe that was the biggest one for me. Now that I think about it, otherwise I think Rob and I agree on that.
Rob, we're all experts after the event. I mean, Pep, we're the managers. We know best. We're the ones that sit in our armchairs and castigate on a manager who's won so many things and is the best in the world. But no, we know best. That's the beauty of football, isn't it? Ultimately, Man City made that harder than they should have done. I think they've got one home clean sheet in the league since Newcastle at the beginning of March. That's another issue. And the weird thing about it is City don't give up that many chances, but they give up percentage-wise goals that you would suggest the chances that they give up, which aren't many, wouldn't result in goals. Is that any concern for Pep ahead of facing a potential front three of Benzema, Vinny Jr. and Rodrigo?
There is a slight concern there. I mean, I think obviously City are playing well enough that they will go into those games thinking that they're going to beat Real Madrid. The interesting thing is that this season, a lot of the attention has been on Erling Haaland, and the question again and again and again to Pep Guardiola has been, is Erling Haaland the man to win you the Champions League? And he's kind of said, well, it's not really. He's not really, because even though he's scoring a lot of goals, City have always scored goals in these big Champions League games. They've scored goals against Real Madrid last season. They scored goals against Monaco, against Tottenham, in Champions League ties that have been knocked out. The problem that they've had is not keeping them out at the other end. They've had these chaotic spells of 5 and 10 minutes where they've leaked 2 and 3 goals, and in the end it's cost them, and that's why they've gone out. So Pep Guardiola has been, particularly before the Bayern quarter-final, was very, very quick to say that they've always scored goals in these games. Scoring goals in these massive Champions League games has not been the problem. The problem has been defending. And so it will be a slight concern that today Leeds haven't really offered very much, but they've had one sort of half chance at the end. Manu Akanji hasn't dealt with a ball that he should have done. Leeds have scored. And the last 5 minutes have been quite nervous here when in a game that probably should have been put to bed long before that. So there is a slight concern. And I think that if Pep Guardiola goes on to win that first Champions League with City this season, I think if he's really, really honest, he will turn around and tell you that the reason that they've won that is not because of Erling Haaland's goals. It's because of a more cohesive defensive unit. They will win the Champions League because of the way they defend, not because of the way they attack.
What did you make of Leeds under Sam Allardyce? Fireman Sam's come in to try and put out the flames. This was always a bonus ball. He never expected to get anything. It's the last 3 that he's hoping to take something from. But I thought they gave a reasonable account of themselves today, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Allardyce's blueprint for keeping a team in the Premier League is to build it on clean sheets, and really they were very shaky at the back. They could have been sort of 5 or 6-0 down in the first half an hour, and lucky really that they came up against a City team with Erling Haaland, who had a little bit of an off day. That said, after half time they were a lot more organised. They were a lot better in transition. They looked like they were almost on the verge of creating something even before that goal right at the end. I think probably there was enough there to give the travelling Leeds fans a little bit of hope that they may be able to pick up the points needed to stay up. I mean, like you say, you're absolutely spot on. I don't think that Sam Allardyce, when he saw the fixtures that he was coming in to deal with at Leeds, thought, well, City away, that's the one that I can pick up points. I think really it was a bit of a free hit. If they got something, great. If they didn't, no one would blink an eye. The big game really for them is away at West Ham in a couple of weeks. And also on the last day of the season against Tottenham at home. They're really the games that they should be targeting. They probably need one win 4 points would be great, but they need some points from somewhere. And certainly today, coming to the Etihad Stadium against a City team who are looking to win a treble, that's not really the game that you should be targeting to win points.
Final question to you, Rob, because I know we've got to get on to other games. You've got to go to the press conference. What has been City's biggest strength this season? I've heard it said that when they've swapped and rotated, they're not weakening their side. They're bringing in similar quality. When Arsenal have done the same, the quality that they're bringing in hasn't been as good. Has it been that? Has it been the goals of Erling Haaland? Has it been the play of the likes of Rodri and Ilkay Gundogan, who today was outstanding? Has it been Kevin De Bruyne? What has it been ultimately? Has it been a culmination and a combination of these things that means that City are likely to win another Premier League title?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably been a combination of all those things. You can't escape the fact that Erling Haaland has scored an unbelievable amount of goals. The way that he plays, the type of striker that he is, has also allowed City to play in a slightly different way. They've still been able to create chances in the way that we would expect a City team to do so, getting the ball wide and into the box. But it's also allowed them to go long every now and again because he's that good of a versatile centre forward. Rodri, the form of Rodri, he's been absolutely unbelievable, and he's barely missed a game this season. He stayed fit. It's why it was so important he was rested today ahead of Madrid. The squad is an interesting issue because last season when they were still in a lot of competitions, they played a Champions League quarter-final against Atletico Madrid and then played an FA Cup semi-final against Liverpool. And Pep Guardiola just said he didn't have the numbers, didn't have the size of the squad to be able to cope with that size of game in the space of a week. And the squad certainly is bigger now. You've got players like Julian Alvarez, who is able to just sort of dip in and dip out whenever they've needed to. And he's had a fantastic first season in England, but no one's really noticed because of the form of Erling Haaland. I mean, having a player like Julian Alvarez who can come in and score goals like he did at Fulham the other day, goals that ultimately win you games in the Premier League. I mean, you can't really, you can't underestimate the size of an impact like that. And that is a combination of all those things have just made City, they've taken it to a different level this year. And that's why they're in the hunt for a treble in mid-May, when perhaps we haven't seen that in the last couple of years.
I still think that the biggest strength of Manchester City is Pep Guardiola. To keep the players motivated, to keep them on side, to keep them hungry. I mean, it's easy to say that, of course, when you add a piece like Erling Haaland, that's true. Not many teams can do that. But as we've seen, they can function without Erling Haaland and do just as well. But, players like Ake, John Stones coming in a different position, improving all those players. Somebody like Gundogan, who will likely leave, but still, he's getting better and better as the season goes along. Jack Grealish, who I think we all complained that wasn't doing enough. And, I remember a time early in the season where we felt that maybe that price tag on him was a little bit too much. So I continue to think over such a long period of time, not to lose that hunger. And we've seen it happen to Manchester United. It's happened to Liverpool, whom they had to fight the last few years. That motivation is a massive thing. And you still have to be able to coach it the way he does and make the team tick the way he does. So I continue to think it doesn't matter who plays, right? Today we've seen 7 changes and absolutely one-way traffic because you almost have to forget about the last 5 or whatever minutes. For me, it's Pep Guardiola.
Final question to you, Rob. Do you expect Pep to name the strongest lineup that he has? I think we've seen it before a couple of times in the Arsenal game and in the Bayern game as well, where he's got Bernardo Silva coming in, maybe Mahrez on the bench, Julian Alvarez on the bench. Do you think it will be the team, the tried and tested one, his go-to team on Tuesday at the Bernabeu, or do you expect maybe a surprise or two?
No, I don't really. I mean, you never know with Pep. He could do anything. He likes to sort of say that he invents these wonderful, amazing tactics before these big Champions League games. But I think today he's given a really big clue as to his team against Real Madrid. He's rested Rodri, Ruben Dias, Bernardo Silva, Jack Grealish. I would expect all of them to be back in the team at the Bernabeu on Tuesday. I would expect it to be that team, the team that did so well against Arsenal at the moment. As well as his squad is functioning, he has quite a strong core of 11 players who in these big games have done particularly well. And it would be a surprise if there was any changes to that against Real Madrid.
Okay, Rob, thank you. And Rob and his full-time report available at ESPNFC.com. And he'll have the post-match thoughts from City and Leeds up there as well. So, Janusz, a couple of other games, or a few other games taking place. I want to start with Chelsea supporters and applaud them for singing "We Are Staying Up, We Are Staying Up" at Bournemouth, a 3-1 win. And João Felix with a goal after coming on. What did you make of this game against Bournemouth, and was it a fair reflection of what you saw?
No, it wasn't for long periods of time. I mean, we see a reborn Bournemouth who play and pose a problem to many teams. In fact, in this game, I think a lot of those Chelsea fans would say that maybe at times they played better, maybe the way that they envisioned Chelsea playing. And, if you look at the goal itself, the combination play, the triangles, the one-touch passing, and the wonderful finish, right? So I think it was Matias Vigna. So nothing's changed, but wins are important. And I think they were due, obviously, or at least Chelsea would feel that way. And the fact that they scored 3 goals, it's a massive bonus. And, the second coming in, maybe against the run of play, because again, if you look at Ryan Christie, the way he played Altara, remember, just before the second goal, he had a header from, 5 yards out that he's got to put away. And we're probably having a different conversation and maybe having fun at Chelsea's expense, if you know what I mean, here, because I don't know if there was going to be a way back. So Frank Lampard needed it. Chelsea needed it. They were playing like they were fighting relegation. There's no doubt about that. And if they had lost this game, as I've mentioned, 2-1, I still don't think they would have gone down with 39 points ahead of the game because they're just too good. But I think it would have been the story because the form they've been in is certainly that of the relegated teams.
Mm-hmm. Chilwell's injury doesn't help. Got a hamstring problem there. It's too early to say if he'll miss out against Nottingham Forest next week. But does that result tell us anything about Chelsea, about Frank Lampard? Because I think it was Sterling that set up João Felix for the third. Neither player even started. So what have we learned, if anything, from this, apart from the fact that Chelsea have finally got back to winning ways, scoring 3 goals for only the 3rd time this season?
Nothing. We're just playing the season out, right? I mean, Chelsea have done it. Today is going to be, a lot more fun, right? Coming into training tomorrow is going to be different. Frank Lampard knows that he's not going to be the next season. A lot of these players are probably trying to figure out the maze and what's going to happen because, I mean, they are the responsible players for that. A lot of them are on a long-term contract. Some decisions have to be made, like João Felix. I mean, that's a massive goal for him. I don't know if that changes things, but if they want him to stay, and there was a time early in the season or right in the beginning when he's played well, and I remember everybody saying Chelsea must buy him out. We all know that's going to be 100 million or even more or somewhere, thereabouts. So lately, Frank Lampard hasn't put his faith in João Felix. So we'll see if and how that's going to change once they announce the new manager. But this is a good result that takes away the pressure, takes away the negativity from the fans, from us pundits, and gives the players a little bit of peace of mind. Because as I said, at a time like this, coming into training tomorrow, it's going to be just a little bit different.
Yeah. For a period of time in the last couple of weeks, it's been the 2 crisis clubs in London have been Chelsea and Spurs, and now both get a victory. Spurs beating Crystal Palace by 1-0. I want to reference a tweet that you put out. I thought it was a decent one, talking about Harry Kane. Sorry?
Finally, you tell me.
Finally, it's only taken 13 years. But it's spot on. And maybe people don't realize the involvement. Your tweet was basically Harry Kane involved in the goal that he scores before he scores the goal. And how many times does that actually happen? Because so often he'll pick the ball up, whether he's deep, and he'll be involved in the move that leads to the assist for his goal. And people talk about him as a goal scorer, understandably so. He's a world-class goal scorer. But maybe he deserves a little bit more credit for his setup play, his awareness, and the number of goals that are created by him ultimately for him later in the move.
Look, I mean, he's super intelligent in that, right? Because I think you and I maybe have talked about this a little bit early in the season, because the way he changes the point and plays it wide, I mean, obviously he wants to give himself a chance to get into the penalty area, right? You never see him when he goes deep to try to kind of play these balls short, unless it's in a combination play and they're penetrating with Human Son or whoever else it may be. So obviously that changed the point of attack. As the ball is in flight or travels, he's got a chance to open himself up. And Pedro Porro gave him a great ball. I was almost joking, because I had another tweet waiting, but I don't think it'll ever happen, because next, he's got to go to the next level, cross it to himself. But I say that half jokingly only because he does that, right? I think he also understands that if he doesn't do it, I'm not sure who else is going to do it, at least in this version of Tottenham and this season of struggles as well. So, I mean, obviously he's changed this game. This is not just, this just didn't start. It's been like this for a while. I think it's understanding that midfield probably needs some help. Most importantly, needs a little bit of creativity. And, I'm talking about, passing here for the most part. So, look, I don't know. Look, he scored 9 goals in the last 11 games in all competitions right now, 26 on the season. As I often say, it's hard to compare that to Erling Haaland, but given the two different teams that these players function in, that 26 goals almost seems like, what is it now, 35 or at least 31 or 32. So if I had to summarize Harry Kane, this is exactly that stat, because Erling Haaland, obviously, the crew around him is a little bit different than the one of that he has at Spurs.
209 Premier League goals takes him second all-time above Wayne Rooney. That'll obviously make headlines. It deserves to. He's a world-class player. But just as importantly for Spurs and Spurs supporters, they got a clean sheet against a dangerous side, and that can't get overlooked because they've dropped some stupid goals of late. So to keep a clean sheet will be just as important for many.
It will be. And again, I mean, look to me like they went to back four. Remember how much we've made in that loss. Christian Stellini went to 4 in the back for the first time in how many? It's been a long, long time since they played that. And Ryan Mason came in and tried that. And so I suppose it's good. I mean, couple changes, obviously. Longley coming in for Eric Dyer, who's been underperforming tremendously there. I think putting Pedro Porro in that midfield, by the looks of it, was a 4-3-3. He wasn't one of the wide players, either fullback or wingback for the most part. So I think, obviously, that probably helped, because if you look at Højbjerg, Skip, and Porro, those are 3 midfielders in there to perhaps protect their defense as well. So I suppose Ryan Mason wasn't afraid to make that mistake, for which Stellini was hammered by just about everyone.
Yeah. In the other game, Wolves beating Aston Villa by 1-0. I think it takes them up to the magic 40-point mark. It does. So it's probably 3 from 5, assuming West Ham can extricate themselves from the quintet below them.
Well, and just quickly, because I think we're going to be here in terms of relegation until the end, because nobody wants to separate themselves from everything. So, I mean, when we're talking about Leeds, one important point, I think, was that, they lost, but that 1 goal may go a long way, right? Because I think brings them level and goal difference with Everton. So if you're going to take it 1-1, one team survives, one doesn't. The goal difference was very important. When they were losing 2-0, they had it worse, and only 1 point ahead. So a draw for Everton would have meant that Leeds would have been in the relegation zone. So sometimes we take them for granted. Yes, it could have been 6-1 or 7-1 for Manchester City, but that 1 goal, while losing, who knows, may be important.
Yeah, if you'd offered Leeds United a 2-1 defeat, even although it was no points at the start of the day, given, as you say, the importance potentially of goal difference, I'm sure they would have taken that, because it could easily have been a heck of a lot worse for Leeds United. Manchester City get all 3 points as expected, but Pep not overly happy with Erling Haaland for giving the ball to Ilkay Gundogan, who then missed the penalty. But it's 3 points for City, and they're 4 clear at the top of the table. Bye for now.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.